All right, hello everybody. So I had a few people show interest in me making a video of how I make cold brew coffee, what my process is. So apologize in advance. I'm terrible at making videos, and I'm doing this unscripted. So there we go. All right. So first thing you want to do is you want to know your preference, know your taste, right? So do you prefer um, light roast, medium roast, dark roast? So what are the differences? Light roast, I mean, obviously the coffee beans, we call them coffee beans, but they're not actually beans, but um, so they're just roasted less, right? That's what I prefer because it has more of the natural flavor and all the minerals and oils and everything still in there. The more you roast it, the more you cook it out. So that's why when you have a dark roast, it's a lot more bitter flavor than a light roast is. The other thing is because I love caffeine, and admittedly I'm addicted to caffeine. uh, but light roast, you also get more of the caffeine in there, so it's stronger. So those of you that drink coffee to wake up or to keep yourself up, you want to go with the light roast because it has more caffeine and it has less of it cooked out, roasted out. Right. So I typically make cold brew with the light roast, but I do experiment and I've tried medium roast and dark roast, and I like all of them. It's just again, it comes down to what your preference is, but I do recommend trying to make cold brew and hot brew in each of those three categories and see what you prefer and what you like, right? So today I'm going to be. Oh yeah, and before I do that, let me switch over so you can see. I don't know. Can I switch to non-self view here? All right. So, anyways, here's the beans I'm going to be using today. They're more of a light roast, and this is a dark French roast. So you should be able to pretty easily see that this is a lot darker to roast it more, right? All right. So the particular brand I'm using today is Stumpton Ethiopia Single Blend. So what? So whenever you're making cold brew, typically you want to go for a single origin. That just means that it's not a blend, and that way you get the full flavor of that particular coffee bean. Um, my all-time favorite is Guatemala Antigua. Pretty much anything from Guatemala is good. It's very strong, good flavor, um, and it's strong to the point where you can do cold brew for only 12 hours instead of 24 hours, and that's another thing. So you're gonna have to experiment again to your taste preference and strength preference whenever you're doing brewing. Um, the average is 12 to 24 hours, and again, it's going to depend on which particular beans you're using. So I've been able to do cold brews with Guatemala blends for only 12 hours, and it came out amazing. It was really good, good taste, good strength, and it was even better whenever I did it for 24 hours. But then again, I like really really strong coffee. Um, so again, you're gonna have to experiment, play around with it, find out what suits your taste, palate, and your strength level. Um, so this is not a end all be all. It's just a guide to how I do it and to my preference. Um, so you do have to play around with it. All right, let's get to it. So I already showed you the coffee that I'm using today, and again, try different companies, different blends, or uh, single origins and blends sometimes too. The blends though, I've always found it doesn't matter what type of blend it is. I always have to brew it for at least 24 hours. Um, it always comes out too weak whenever I do a blend for less than 24 hours. But single origins, again, depending on the the type that you get, you can do it for 12 hours. All right, so the what I'm using to grind my coffee beans is just a Mr. Coffee grinder. Okay, so I've already poured the beans, and what I do is I fill it up to this line mark here. And just grind it up, and I do it for a slow 7-second count. Alright, so this process is a lot neater and easier if you have a funnel. I keep meaning to get a funnel, I haven't done it yet, but this would be a lot easier and neater, less messy if you had a funnel. Alright. So you can see that the grinds, so you want it, I mean, again, this is going to come down to your preference. Okay, see if you can see that very well. Okay, so it comes down to your preference and how long you want to take for brewing and everything else, right? So the finer you grind it to where it's more of a powder, the minerals and the everything in it, it's going to release a lot faster. So you can get away with brewing it for less time, for basically 12 hours or less. However, whenever you do that, depending on the type that you're using, you run basically the chance of it becoming, for lack of better terms, overbrewed. So you release too much and you end up getting just a bad taste, like it's too strong, and it just tastes different. Like it's just something you're gonna have to experience for yourself. I can't really describe it. So the time that I ground for gives it that good middle ground right there, where you get it takes a little bit more time to brew, but you get the best results, at least in my personal experience, anyways. So again, you have to try doing it different ways and see what suits you, basically. Right? Okay, so take that and I add that to my 2-quart, 64-ounce mason jar. I'll post a picture from Amazon. Like literally, you type in coffee cold brew maker or cold brew coffee maker, and it's the first return that I got on the list. Oh, sorry, I got a mess here on the side. Okay. So you just add it in, and don't add it all in at one time, because whenever you're doing this, you add it a little bit at a time, and then add your water, let it get saturated, let it settle, and then you add more powder on top of that. Shake it out, level it out, okay. And then I'm just going to fill it up to roughly about here. And then after that, let it settle just a little bit, grind some more beans, add that. Almost here. And I'm using, however you want to do it. This helps me. I've got a water jar here that we keep in the refrigerator and a spout. It makes it a lot easier to add your water. And so towards the end, I'll be using the measuring cup to add the last little bit of water, because then it's a lot more difficult with this or with anything else. You want like very good control, so you just want to be able to add a little bit at a time. Alright, I need to add a little bit more. Okay. All right, so while that's settling, I'm going to grind up the next batch, or the next bed of beans. And then you want to usually get some residue in there, so you want to scrape that out with a spoon so you don't waste anything, and keep your coffee grinder clean, of course. Alright, so right now that's so two of these up to this line. Okay, that's how much it provides. So now I'm gonna fill it up to basically about here, and then take it slowly from there and adjust. And I'll be able to grind just a little bit more, and you just kind of have to eyeball it. So I'll show you that here in a minute. Let's get the water at it first, though. I forgot to start my stopwatch. I was going to tell you how long this took, but you can tell by the timestamps on the video, so never mind. Okay, so whenever you're doing this and it starts to settle, you're going to notice that it'll kind of be uneven. So you want to try and even it out, so that we have, just add a little bit of water, flush those grounds down. So you get an even surface, so that way you know what level you're actually at before you add more coffee grounds to it. And it helps if you kind of shake it a little bit, so it'll disperse it evenly as the water is draining down. Okay. All right. So as you can see, still have some space there. Okay, so I'm going to grind up a little bit more. And basically with this jar, you don't want to fill it up to the top, okay? Because you just don't need to for flavor and for strength. So I usually fill it up to roughly about here, and then I'll fill the rest up with, make sure the water goes up to the top. Okay. So I don't have an exact measurement for like filling up the remainder. I've done it so many times I could just eyeball it. So basically enough to kind of cover the bottom and a layer. That's basically what I do, and that's enough for the rest of it. Okay, so there we go. Add a little bit more. So roughly you should be left with about that much space. Okay, so again, don't fill it up to the top with coffee grounds. Alright, so now I'm going to use measuring cup to add the rest. So I have a little bit more control. So you have to add it slower once you get closer to the top, because the grounds start coming up to the top and makes a mess. Plus we're going to use the measuring cup for refilter, which I'll show you here in a minute. Again, that we'll get to it in a minute. Okay. And while we're at almost 20 minutes now, never realized it took this long. Probably because I enjoy doing it, so it doesn't seem like a long time to me. Alright, so if you are the type that don't have patience, then this is probably not for you. But I do, so just bear with me, please. I don't know how to do a lot of video editing, and frankly I don't have the software for it right now either, so I can't go and speed this process up for you, so sorry it's taking so long. So whenever you're doing this, you're keeping an eye on the rising. After you pour it in, you keep an eye on the level, the water level here. You can see it going down. So I'm just letting this filter down first and see what my actual level is before I add any more water, because I don't want it to overflow. I think I might be too close. There we go. So I'm just watching it go up, being patient. Okay, looks like we're settled. So now I'm just gonna slowly add the water up to fill up the top there. There we go. A little bit more. There we go. Alright. So that's where I stop filling it up. I fill it up to about that point. I leave just a little bit of space at the top. Okay. Now, what I do here, another reason that we have to use the measuring cup. And again, this is going to be your preference, right? So I find that it tastes better and stronger if I refilter it. So I'll take this out, okay? I'll set it in here, and I'll just basically let it drain out as much as possible. And then I'll set this back in and then refilter what drains out in here back through. Okay. And I'll do that one time whenever I first start making the coffee. And then I'll do it usually 2 more times over the next 24 hours or 12 hours, however long I do it. So what else you'll notice is that once you've let it sit in the fridge for a while, your water level is actually going to go down, so it'll saturate more and the water level will go down a little bit more. So you can actually go back in and add just a little bit more water to it. Not a lot, just a little bit, because right now you can see the level here, right? So basically, whenever it's all said and done, my level is actually right up to here. So you're able to get just that little bit extra coffee out of it if you follow up and do that and add the water later after it's settled. Usually it takes, I don't know, I don't have an exact number, but usually I go and check it and refilter it after it's sat for about 4 or 5 hours. And then after that, you shouldn't have to add any more water, and then you just refilter it a 3rd time. Again, your preference, how you want to do it. Try it without refiltering to see how it tastes, and then your next batch, try it with refiltering, so you can see the difference. That's the only way I found out. I just did it on hunch. I was just like, wonder if I refilter it, if it helps, if it changes anything, and it